All right, so Suparna Bagchi is a PhD candidate and a doctoral teaching assistant at the University of Plymouth. Her presentation is titled Enacting and Implementing Multiculturalism in Primary Schools of Plymouth. She presently works as a doctoral teaching assistant at the Institute of Education at Plymouth University, and her job involves teaching undergraduate and postgraduate students of education studies. She's researching the implementation of multiculturalism in primary schools in Plymouth, and she is a trained compassionate ambassador and a certified faith speaker. She hopes to pursue a career in academia after completing her PhD. So thank you very much, Suparna, for joining us today, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hello from United Kingdom. Thank you, Ido and Danny, for giving this wonderful opportunity, and thank you all who have come here to listen to this lovely podcast or conference, so to say. So as Danny said, my research is about enacting and implementing multiculturalism in primary schools of Plymouth, United Kingdom. Plymouth is a southwestern city of England. It is more known as the oceanic city of United Kingdom. Yes, I'm almost at the Atlantic Ocean. United States is nearer to me than London. Of course, I cannot ask you a question, but if I have to ask you this question, that how much percentage of Plymouth's population is constituted by children and youth from ethnic minorities? If you have guessed it's 25%, it's wrong. If you've guessed 13%, that is also wrong. That's the national figures. Yes, 7% is the correct answer. So in Plymouth, we, the Black and Asian minority ethnic community, constitute 7% of Plymouth's population. And it might appear to be very less, but actually, let me tell you that Plymouth has actually experienced around twofold increase in its BAME population, Black and Asian minority ethnic population. And the most important question is here, how to integrate these children from ethnic minorities into the mainstream education system. And this is particularly pertinent in areas like Plymouth, which have got historically low ethnic diversity. My research falls under the broad umbrella of inclusive education. What is inclusive education? It is a fundamental element of the education system whereby the ordinary educational institutions adopt various different measures in order to respond to the diverse needs of its students. So this entails not only the admission of pupils from various different capabilities and backgrounds, but also restructuring the educational setup in such a way that it caters to the said changes. Inclusive education is a rather new concept. It's a recent concept which was introduced by UNESCO in 1994 at the Salamanca Statement and Framework for Action. Multiculturalism, yes, that is what I'm trying to implement, see whether it can be implemented in the primary schools of Plymouth. The term has been defined in different ways, so it is kind of difficult to understand it in one fixed way. For example, one of the interesting characteristics of multiculturalism is public recognition and accommodation of minority cultures, be it in the design of legislatures or in the formulation and incorporation or interpretation of laws and policies, or even in the choice of rules in order to govern the public institutions. Parekh and Maudud, who are very popular, world-known multiculturalists who are working in the United Kingdom, they believe that multiculturalism involves a two-way process of integration. That is, there should be adjustment from both majority community and the minority communities in order to help the minority communities settle well over here. Multicultural education that I'm dealing with is based on equity, which can be introduced by the teachers through various culturally responsive teaching techniques and procedures aimed at facilitating the students from diverse backgrounds and all social classes. However, the definition that I'll go forward and which has appealed to me the most on multicultural education is the one which consists of two essential elements, equity and cultural awareness, which are fulfilling the educational requirements of a child from ethnic minority and also preparing all the pupils for multicultural society, for the multiracial society that UK is presently. My aim is to explore cultural awareness at primary schools of Plymouth. My research questions involve how do schools implement the guidelines laid down by in the national curriculum with respect to promotion of multiculturalism. How do policies around multiculturalism relate to inclusion of children from ethnic minority communities? How multiculturalism permeates the life of school, whether it's a one-off exercise once in a while, or it is done throughout the year. And finally, how do children, parents, and practitioners experience cultural awareness? Now, most of the research that is undertaken on ethnic minorities is in places with high ethnic minority population. While this is important, I do sincerely feel that it is important even more to undertake these studies in places with low ethnic diversity like Plymouth. Because here the majority community do not have much scope of interaction with these people. So they do not have much knowledge about the minority community. And when you have knowledge, then only you can recognize and appreciate differences. There was only one study which was conducted in the year 2013 by scholars and employees from the University of Plymouth, called the Gender and Ethnicity Attainment Gap. But this was conducted on Plymouth University students who come from across the world. So it was not a study exclusively on the settled minorities in Plymouth. My study looks at a holistic way of looking at the settled minorities, the parents, the practitioners, and the students. And finally, a cause of worry is that why I was intended to take up this study is the Plymouth and Devon Racial Equality Council reports that there are every day 50 racist or religiously aggravated incidents in the city of Plymouth alone. So I believe that unless educational requirements are fulfilled for these ethnic minorities in places with low diversity, they will continue to live in a shell, in an invisible state. So it's good to bring up their story. Mine will be a qualitative methodological approach. I will use my position as a member of a diverse ethnic minority. As I told you, I'm a person from the BAME community, Black and Asian minority ethnic community. So I'll use my position to conduct the research in that way. I will conduct multiple case studies, including documentary analysis, audio recording of lessons, semi-structured interviews consisting of open-ended questions with parents and practitioners in order to understand their perspectives, feelings, and experiences. So mine will be an interpretivist approach using the sociocultural theory of Lev Vygotsky. Well, the biggest challenge is COVID, the ongoing pandemic. I am finding it a little bit tricky to get access to schools now because of the COVID-19 restrictions. The schools are not, they are pretty skeptical about letting an outsider come inside, move around the school, take pictures, or move around in the classrooms, meet the students, teachers. So my study will be conducted remotely. That is how I have designed the strategy. And I talked about audio recordings in the previous slide. That is because here the minors are involved, so I cannot take video recordings. So the biggest challenge is, of course, COVID, but apart from that, it's a small size data. I know because of the absence of a sizable BAME population over here. And also the interviews that I conduct, or the participants from BAME population, their views might vary depending upon whether they are the first or the second generation residents over here. However, I intend to adopt, or I intend to collect in-depth data rather than an in-breadth data. I do feel that my research can contribute to the ongoing studies emphasizing on the need for a multicultural curriculum by looking at the different themes of diversity, inclusion, and multiculturalism. So it can give an idea of what the picture is like in a place similar to Plymouth in terms of demography, like having a low ethnic minority community population, or in terms of its location, like because of its remoteness and poor connectivity to the rest of the country or to the main city that is nearer to it. My research has got a wider appeal to a much broader audience with national interest, and especially in the times when, you know, Black Lives Matter movement is happening, and rightfully so. And finally, I do feel that my research it is one of the very first that is conducted in a place with low ethnic minority diversity and community. I do believe that my research can give guidance to the policymakers in Plymouth in order to identify potential areas where culturally relevant intervention programs can be directed. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me at suparna.bagchi@plymouth.ac.uk. Thank you.